You can play with, for example, reducing the pH slightly will enhance arsenic absorption on the HFO. What I find particularly interesting is we also tested the supernatant water level, that's on the right. On the top we had a really low supernatant water level, so that's the water on top of your filter if you have a saturated filter. And on the bottom we increased the supernatant water level to 1 meter 20. And what you do then is you stimulate homogeneous iron oxidation over heterogeneous iron oxidation, meaning that you form flux that are more mobile in your filter bed, which you can see on the left where the iron is plotted, ending indeed with a lower arsenic concentration in the end. Again, concentrations differences are small because this was a pilot site at Pitspa in Belgium. Unfortunately, they don't have high arsenic. But we also go to Bangladesh. This is Kajul. Kajul is a PhD student, and the research we're doing in Bangladesh is in the region where he's originally from. And he's investigating how to use these insights for a system in Bangladesh. And what we did is we wanted to delay this iron oxidation, and we decided to do it with anoxic storage prior to aeration filtration, because at low EH and without aeration you would not have a pH increase. This would reduce the iron oxidation, together with the promotion of HFO mobility in a dual bed and a higher supernatant water level. Well, the setup in Bangladesh looks really nice. Yeah, so normally you have these rusty PVC columns, but we collaborate with industrial design engineers, and they found a rickshaw artist available to make this for all of our filters. Really nice. The color makes it the PhD candidate is still digesting the results, but I thought I would share them with you anyway, because I think they're spectacular. So if you have an aerated system, just plain aeration, filtration, you remove your iron rapidly during oxidation, as I said before. So all the iron plots, they overlap for either sampling in the storage container or before and after the filter. However, if we have no aeration, we call it anoxic storage, but I suspect there's some oxygen contamination in our system, because we do get iron oxidation already on day one, but only partially, which is really nice, what we wanted. And the iron is not removed in the storage container, but is removed after aeration. And as a consequence, in an aeration filtration system, we go to about 300 micrograms per liter to 140 micrograms per liter. So initially there seems to be better removal, but I suspect absorption on the iron, on the sand we were using, which is just natural sand from there. So the removal is just over half of the arsenic. Whereas if we have a system where no aeration has occurred, we reach 40 micrograms per liter, which is a huge increase. And I think we can even do better, but this is a really nice start. Yeah, but does this fill the technology gap, eh? So I think every story needs to have a head and a tail. I don't know. I think this is a big jump still ahead. But what I do like is to experiment and see what we can do with these process-related insights towards design of a system that could be applied. And if we may dream, the theoretical removal of arsenic-3 with iron, if you look at the arsenic-iron concentrations that have been measured in the BGS study, the map would look like this. Slightly different than the earlier map, but it's difficult to find the differences. And if we would work with a system where we optimize iron removal, co-removal with arsenic, it looks like this, meaning that instead of 65, 95% of the wells in Bangladesh can remove arsenic just by relying on the iron in the water. So there's the dream. What's next? Well, what's important is to know, of course, where's the arsenic, but also where's the iron in the system in order to start constructing filters, whether it's central or decentral, doesn't matter. So what we tested was an iron test strip app. It's an existing app where an iron test strip is combined with the ACFO app. Maybe some of you might have used it as well. It's inexpensive, easy to use, so we had it used by end users themselves. And we wanted to generate with that crowd data. But does this crowd data beat the inaccuracy of a test kit like this used by untrained people? Well, we did this study in India and in Bangladesh. I'll focus on the Bangladesh data here. In this map, it's just the ICP-MS data for arsenic and iron. And if you take a glance, you see immediately there's not a really strong relationship between the two. And you can also see in the false negatives that there are 26 out of 184 in our study area in Bangladesh. So at first glance, maybe this doesn't work. However, if you generate enough mass and the distribution of your false negatives is evenly through an area, through the villages geographically, for a screening tool it doesn't matter so much. So if we plot our data with QGIS, on the left you can see now the iron test kit results. And there are more or less 7 villages included in the study, and to the left, right, and all the way up, these villages are difficult to see because they're really small dots, hardly any iron. And then in the middle and in the bottom there are also a few villages with really high iron concentrations. So just relying on iron, knowing that iron co-occurs with arsenic, you know where to go, right? And indeed, if we plot our arsenic data on top of these test kit data, you get a really nice map. So I would say, even though this relationship between the two is not perfect, as a screening tool for local governments, it can work really well, as well as empowerment of people, so they can test their own well, showing to the government that we have an issue potentially in our village. So, conclusions for practice. Yes, it is possible to enhance the removal of arsenic with naturally co-occurring iron. With simple engineering tools, apply a coarser filter media, operating a higher supernatant water level, maintaining a lower pH, and by anoxic storage prior to aeration. But in Bangladesh, there's the need of clever well screening, as well as social design. Maybe co-creation, you've heard of it, it's key in the working in villages like this, in the international context, but also difficult because amongst engineers it's logical you co-create, but if we talk about end users in a village, how do you co-create with them? They are your customers in a sense, or the customers of your local partners at least. So what I thought would be really nice to do in our study is to design a design challenge. And I asked my colleagues of industrial design engineering, based on the processes we identified, anoxic storage, aeration, dual membrane filtration, dual media filtration, to design a filter that should be constructed just with local crafts and materials from the village. So no external machinery, no external materials. In the end, they were allowed to have a few fake Festo tubes, connectors from Dhaka, which cost 50 cents. I want to get rid of those in future designs. The filter should be really cheap, produce enough for a family or more. And they added their own criterion, is that they should be able to construct it in 3 hours. So my own civil engineering students always just spit out data, the slides I just showed you. But these industrial design engineers, they keep a blog. And I want to show you a short fragment of this blog. I think because it shows in what kind of environment we work. It's a loud environment. But also, to me, it gives this grassroots feeling that I know this solution might not be the solution, but it's something that activates people, which I think is valuable. So there we go. Ooh, and I'm feeling.
Auto rickshaw, fully loaded actually. We are